coming today. I really appreciate your engagement in this discussion about adversity. So first, I want to start by asking you, why is being here today important for you? Are you discouraged? Do you need to be refreshed as a leader? Do you need new techniques to handle adversity? Or do you need a bit of inspiration? Whatever the case, welcome. And feel free to write comments in. James will let me know if you have any comments or questions. I'm happy to answer them. And today I want to talk about a program that I have developed called Facing AdFARsity. And it's a lifestyle that you embrace that will forever change the view of yourself and the way you handle adversity. We all face the storms of life, but what if you face them with more peace, joy, confidence, and knew that you were where you needed to be without question? No doubts, no regrets. This program will let you face the future unafraid, and you can handle any and all moments with the tools that I have learned, hard learned, but I'd like to share with you today. Now, I've done this event a few times, and I learn every time I deliver it. So if you don't know who I am, my name is Vicki Trabosh. And if you want to learn more about me, go to my website, victoriatrabosh.com. But I'm an author, a speaker, a coach, and I've recently realized that I'm a warrior, that I face the battles of my life head on. And the more engaged I become in facing the adversity, the more encouraged I am that it is not just important for me, but for you as well. Learning to face adversity will help you have post-traumatic growth. That is the growth that comes from facing adversity and the wisdom that we get. And in our wisdom, we grow wiser, and then we grow deeper in our learning, and we know anything is possible. Maybe like me, you've gone through adversity and come through it with a greater appreciation for life. Maybe you have more meaningful relationships and more success. Isn't that really what we want, success as we define it? And possibly you've had spiritual growth, which I believe also happens when we take a deep dive and look into adversity and how adversity can make you stronger. Through the next minutes, I'll give you some background and a template to face adversity. Recently, I received my master's from Harvard in anthropology and archaeology with a focus on child soldiers and ending their use. I did a TEDx talk in 2018, and I spoke at the United Nations. And as a heart attack and cancer survivor, I am all about listening and helping others manage and maintain their life while I listen to your stories. And that's what I do as my work as a coach. Now, let me define adversity. Adversity is a trouble, a misfortune, a hardship. And there are many kinds of adversities we face in our lives. But there are some reoccurring themes. There's physical adversity, there's illness, there's rejection, there's poverty, there is the loss of a loved one, struggling to succeed in your selected career, and also self-doubt. Now, when we think about self-doubt, we may not realize what that can be adverse to us. But I remember when I had started at Harvard, I did not believe I belonged there. And I learned an interesting fact that something like 85% of everyone that goes to Harvard has imposter syndrome. They go, what am I doing here? Well, I had that until I kept taking the classes and getting good grades and learning. And self-doubt manifests in all sorts of ways. And it's a big one because many people struggle to find their reason for living. What am I doing here on earth? Not in simple ways, but in existential ways. What am I here to do in the world? And I'd like to stop and remind you of something. Do not fear the future, for it will come. Do not run from adversity. It will be no use. And do not doubt you have the strength to overcome any obstacle. My recent obstacle, recent as of 9 years, has been cancer. And when I was down at Miraval in Tucson, Arizona in February before my last surgery, I was talking about facing adversity and going far. And I said AdFARsity, and I invented this new word, AdFARsity. And the word AdFARsity, the FAR in AdFARsity stands for faith, acceptance, and recognition. Now, I'm going to go over this with you in a little bit, but I want to do some new training today about facing adversity and thinking about your mindset. Do you have a growth or a fixed mindset? Now, this is not new, but I want you to listen carefully. Consider the following statement. Learn how to have an unstoppable growth mindset that will support wellness, resilience, and the release of toxic negativity and trauma. Many of us unconsciously adopt a fixed mindset. It's a psychological trait likely ingrained by the survival instincts of the human race. Our minds become prisons of our own making, and we wait for the other shoe to drop. It's something bad's going to happen. Gosh, something good just happened. Now something bad's going to happen. That is a fixed mindset. We become prisoners of the belief that the characteristics are reversible, and that confuses our mind and makes us give up. We have these mental patterns that are so conditioned through childhood memories. I am telling you this. It takes one time for one adult to say to a kid, "You will never amount to anything," for that child to remember it for the rest of their life. And the parent forgets it. The parent says, "I never said that." And the kid says, the adult kid, "Oh, yeah, you did." But when we become prisoners of these fixed mindsets, we condition ourselves not to succeed, not to be able to handle adversity. And we fear and awfulize. Now, I learned the term awfulizing back in like 2000. I was at a conference and this woman said, "We're going to awfulize." And I said, "What's awfulizing?" It's taking something to its worst possible conclusion. So I was sitting next to a woman and they said, "Turn to your neighbor and do this." So I said, "Okay, I'll do this." So I said, "I have a fight with John. We don't speak. We don't speak for hours." And then I start thinking about it. And I'm not sure he loves me. And, I always said if we ever separated, I wouldn't take anything because he left his first marriage with not much. And I said I wouldn't do that to him. So then I start thinking about, well, I have to get an apartment. And I said I wouldn't take anything, but I'm going to take the piano that he gave me as a Christmas gift. And I'm going to take my cat because he doesn't really like that cat. And I'll go get a 1-bedroom apartment. And I'll live in the apartment with my piano and my cat. And I went, wow. And the woman who was looking at me was like shocked. She goes, "That really happened?" I go, "No, I was awfulizing. I was taking something to its worst possible conclusion. An argument with my husband does not lead me to a studio apartment with a piano and a cat. But when we awfulize, we take something to its worst possible conclusion. That's based on fear. Everyone who's dealt with major illness, cancer, we can awfulize this. Cancer is awful, and it's a thief, and it robs us of our dreams and hopes, but we can awfulize it or we can fight it. And if you've read Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, you may be familiar with logotherapy, and it's a therapeutic approach that helps people find personal meaning in their lives. And it's a form of psychotherapy focused on the future and our ability to maintain and handle hardship and suffering through a search for purpose. Viktor Frankl was in a Holocaust camp and he lost everyone. And this is a beautiful book, Man's Search for Meaning. I highly recommend it. So the first half of the book is his story of being in the camps and everything that happened to him. And the second half of the story is logotherapy, the psychotherapy he developed. And logotherapy offers 3 different paths for finding meaning in life. The first one is performing a deed or creating something, taking some action. Now, for me, I started the Foundation for Rwanda in 2005. And that brought me great meaning. And of course, if you've ever done any work in the world, you know that you get more from it than you ever give. And that was certainly the case for me with AdFARsity. But I took action. I wanted to help the people of Rwanda not be defined by a genocide, but by their strength and resilience. We raised $1.5 million. I have been to Rwanda 12 times. Some of my dearest friends in the world live there. That helps me find meaning in my life. The second way logotherapy offers a path is by coming into contact with someone or experiencing something. Now, I call that being kind to a stranger. How kind are you to strangers? The homeless population all over the world is very difficult. How often have you ever seen someone sitting outside a grocery store and gone in and bought them a sandwich and a cup of coffee and dropped it off for them? Not expecting a big conversation, just doing a small act of kindness. Those moments changed my life because to see the humanity in another makes me more human myself. And the third one is by experiencing unavoidable suffering and the attitude we take towards it. Cancer is tough. And I have not been able to avoid the suffering. But as the great singer, Joan Baez says, there are sorrows far greater than mine. That is perspective for me. And when you think about these things, performing a kind deed or taking action, or coming into contact with someone, or experiencing unavoidable suffering, I'm going to take a couple minutes here. So if you've got a pen and paper, I'm going to ask you to write this down, and I'm just going to be silent for a couple of minutes. And what can you do today to find meaning? Write it down. You can put it in the chat, share it with James. He'll share it with me. But what can you do to find meaning in your life right now? So I'll be quiet for a couple of minutes. So the question I asked you to consider was, what can you do today to find meaning? And if there are any comments, James, let me check in the private chat. Thank you, James. James is in charge of me. He keeps me balanced. He keeps me muted when I need to be muted. It's great. My husband would like that mute button, by the way, James, if you could just send it to him and he can use it when he needs it. But anyway, if there are any comments or anyone would like to say anything, whether or not you comment to me, think about this. What can you do today to find meaning in your life? Because if you have that fixed mindset, and it's the world, we believe the world's permanent the way it is, and we believe that imaginary circumstances, limitations, make us feel like victims of external circumstances. And a common misconception is that our fate is shaped by our situations, but in reality, our destiny is influenced by the situation. On the other hand, a growth mindset encourages taking responsibility for our decisions and their outcome. Viktor Frankl wisely said, "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way." This mindset, this growth mindset, changes our perspective on living, seeing it as an endless opportunity for growth and evolution, driven by the challenges we face. I have oral cancer. I've had 8 surgeries to my face. I was paralyzed last February 23. I had my teeth recently pulled, my upper teeth. But you know what? I'm still talking. And I swear I will talk until the day I die. Because I am driven by the challenges of oral cancer. I see the humor in it. I see the irony in it. I say God laughs and gives an international speaker oral cancer, and I say, I can handle it. And a growth mindset is not just about surviving or adapting. It's about thriving and requires courage and resilience. Neuroplasticity, that's a tough one. Neuroplasticity is the transformation of the neurons of our brain. And they can be supported by practices such as meditation, mindfulness, and physical activity. That changes the neuroplasticity of our brain. And the topics we're exploring today are focused on a growth mindset. So there's radical responsibility we have to take if we're going to accept a growth mindset. We live by choice. That is radical possibility. We make the impossible possible, not knowing how we can do it. And finally, we let go of fixed ideas about ourselves and others. And this work is from the Heart Mind Institute. And today's challenge is to look for opportunities to apply a growth mindset. If you feel upset or victimized any time during the day, remember these 4 steps. Stop, feel, breathe, be. James, you got a comment to add in from someone? Thanks, Serena. Absolutely, you need to do it for yourself. And thank you for putting that in there, because that is accountability for yourself first. And to be courageous enough to share it says you're on your way. I love that. So we stop, we listen, we feel where we feel it in our body, and we breathe. I like the 5 times 4 method. Inhale for 5. Hold for 5. Exhale for 5. Rest for 5. When you do that, and do it anytime during the day, especially in moments of difficulty, you will feel yourself changing. And then you can ask the transformational question, what can I do? Rather than being victimized by life, you tap into your own personal power and creativity. Next week, 2 weeks, I'm speaking at Purdue Women's Foundation, and my speech is titled, Not Difficult, Determined. I am not difficult, but I am determined to live this life the way I choose. And I need to remind myself that I have enough strength for the day. These are small steps that take us a long way. So remember to stop, feel, breathe, and be present. And knowing we are our own harshest critic, remember, when you look back at what you have accomplished, you will be amazed at your own strength. It was hard won, not necessarily chosen, but life-changing. I'm often told that I have strength, and I don't necessarily see it that way because I know what's going on inside. But I do say, I do know I have strength for the day. So let me talk about the FAR in AdFARsity. Let me start with faith. Someone once said, if you fail to go within, you go without. And I believe that finding faith in something outside ourselves is as important to support us. And yes, I'm talking about a spiritual practice. Now, it could be meditation. For you, meditation might be difficult, or you practice with one eye open because there's other things going on. But there's a woman named Pema Chodron who does a really good job talking about meditation. And she speaks of Shenpa, which is the urge to hook that triggers our habitual tendency to close down. For instance, you're going to meditate, and you meditate, and all of a sudden you're thinking about lunch, and that hooked you. Now, what do you do about that? You beat yourself up and say, I cannot believe I cannot meditate without thinking about lunch. No, that's Shenpa, that's stuck. You release it, you let it go. She's very funny. I highly recommend you watch her. But when we get hooked, there is that moment of tightening. And when we tighten, we close down. And we need to reach for relief. We need to reach for release. And I think that often happens when we face adversity. We become afraid. And we believe in something unseen, or even within ourselves, it may be difficult, but it's possible. Pema Chodron is a woman of peace. And as she states it, it begins with us. If one wishes suffering not to happen to the people and the earth, it begins with a kind heart. Kindness is so important in our lives, especially kindness to ourselves. For those of you who'd like to be more active, it might be physical challenges that remind you of what is possible. There are enough YouTubes on videos to show what people can do, the impossible that reminds us we can do something. Now, years ago when I was at Miraval, I did something called the quantum leap, which was to climb a 35-foot telephone pole, stand at the top of the disc that was turning, and move 180 degrees and jump off. Now, this pole, this is not me, could have been. I climbed the top of the pole, and you see you run on a pole, right? And then you're supposed to like lean down and bring your knee between your chest and your hands and get on this disc. I could not do that. I could not do that. So I had to stand up straight, keep walking. And everyone down below me was yelling. And I said, not so kindly, shut up down there. Now they're trying to be helpful, but it was not helpful to me because I needed to go within. I needed to find the strength because I wanted to do that, that quantum leap. And I did it. I stood on the top of that pole. The whole pole started moving. I'm like, oh God. And then it stopped. And then I looked out at the horizon and I thought, what am I capable of? I turned 180 degrees and I jumped off. I did the quantum leap. And I want you to think about what your quantum leap is. In the late 70s, I was dating a guy who adored two people, Muhammad Ali and Elvis Presley. Next time, James, we're going to have pictures of them up. I'll have to do that. So I had to listen to him talk about these two guys, and I'm like, oh man, I just don't get it. But he was passionate about them both, and I saw the genius in both of them. And when we talked about Muhammad Ali, then we watched heavyweight fights. And while I am not a fan of violence of any sort, I was astounded at Muhammad Ali's physical ability and his ability to get back up when he got knocked down. I think our human spirit wants us to get up and succeed, and sometimes we just forget it's possible. If you practice a religion, it can bring you comfort, but it can also bring you confusion. But if you can look past the religion to the faith itself, I encourage you to find something within that brings you peace and calm. And I also want to remind you to have faith in yourself. I first got cancer in 2014, oral cancer, and nothing surprised me more. I dealt with it in 2014 and 2015 with 36 radiation treatments to my face. And then in 2022, it came back with a roar. I had part of my palate removed from inside my mouth. And then I got cancer down here. And they said, we're going to take the skin off your arm. Oh, that looks pretty good. Well, can't see it too good. They said, we're going to take the skin off your arm. We're going to put it in your mouth. We're going to give you a tracheostomy. We're going to give you a feeding tube. Tubes coming out of everything. And took out a bunch of teeth, left me paralyzed, and I only had 2 teeth I could chew food with. Because, fun fact, you don't chew with your front teeth. You tear with your front teeth. You chew with the ones back here. There are no teeth down here. There were no teeth up here. There were some teeth down here and no teeth up here, except 2. But I kept going. And then this year, all my upper teeth got loose from the radiation damage of 9 years ago. Now, I do not regret that radiation because the other opportunity I was given was to have my mouth cut off. And come on, people, can you imagine me not talking? Because I sure can't. So I said, no, you're not cutting off my mouth. And they said, we'll do radiation, but it's going to be brutal. And funny, it was brutal. And brutal 9 years later. But 11 weeks ago, I had all my upper teeth were loose. I had them pulled. And I stand here today talking. And I'll hopefully, I believe that my speaking is more important than my own suffering. In my thesis on child soldiers, I reviewed a film by a director, Brian Singal. He wrote a beautiful story called Children of War. He embedded himself in a child rehabilitation camp in Uganda for 3 years, just him and his camera. And he told this beautiful story. We followed 3 little children who'd been made into soldiers, a girl and 2 boys. And he told this beautiful, heartbreaking story. It was actually released at the United Nations, first film ever shown there. And when I was interviewing him for my thesis, such a great man, I said, how did you handle all the suffering? And he said something that changed my life. He said, all suffering is impermanent. Now, it's a Buddhist belief, but it was powerful for me. And it helped me have faith in myself that I could endure any pain that came my way because it was impermanent. And just to get a little graphic here. So these implants are screwed into my roof of my mouth, or my brain, as I like to say. And it hurts sometimes. But when I sit in that chair without painkillers or anything, I think all suffering is impermanent. And I get through the moment. Now, whether we are suffering psychic pain or emotional pain or physical pain, I now know all suffering is impermanent, and it gives me comfort. With faith also comes forgiveness, and that is a longer story. But when we learn to forgive others who have wronged us, we move on. Part of the program I'm going to talk about that I'm offering near the end of this presentation is a year-long program where we will focus on faith and forgiveness and learn ways to find forgiveness, not for the perpetrator of our harm, but for ourselves. Frankly, I recently went through this process with my surgeons who accidentally paralyzed me. I was so angry about it. And I was kind of trying to figure out which one did it. And I couldn't get over it. But I did a forgiveness meditation. And I thought, who do I need to forgive? And I realized it was the surgeons. I'll get to your comment in a minute, Maggie. And so I thought about it and I realized they're so skilled. And this surgery was so difficult. And I forgave them because I knew it was an accident and they're doing their best. And with that, I was released. I don't put surgeons, doctors, I don't put anybody on a pedestal, but they're just human beings. And we all deserve and need forgiveness. James, do you want to put up the comment? Thanks, Maggie. Boy, it's a long time since I've seen you, but I see you on Facebook. We all need fresh perspective. And forgiveness is a powerful, powerful idea in Rwanda. There's something called gacaca in the grass, gacaca means justice in the grass. And when we learn to forgive, after the genocide in 1994 against Tutsi, 1 million people died in 100 days. There were 2 psychologists in a country of 9 million people. Psychology was not culturally accepted. But every year on the anniversary of the genocide, on April 7th, everyone would be re-traumatized. So they decided to use gacaca to have conversations with people in communities. So like in a village, there would be the village leaders and there would be a conflict and the people would meet with the leaders and they would work it out. Well, they started to use gacaca for the genocide perpetrators. They held thousands of meetings and I had the honor of attending a gacaca. And the prisoners came and they were all dressed in pink, which was quite emasculating. And they would be there and someone would accuse them of killing their family member. And if they asked forgiveness, they were put into the community. They had 10 times the number of people sitting in prison that they could hold. And it doesn't mean they wouldn't have a trial, but they wouldn't have to wait in prison. And I watched these prisoners stand up and some of them said, I didn't kill anybody. And the pain and the hurt in the audience, in the members of the community, it was so great. And I thought, we must ask forgiveness and we must learn forgiveness. And when we learn forgiveness, again, we do it for ourselves, not anyone else. And this actually goes back to my earlier comments on a growth mindset. This is where a coach or a therapist can be of great value. Every one of my friends and family know I have a 0 whine policy. Speak your fears, yes. But if you say yes, but, then I don't believe you. My mother, dead Rita, would always say yes, but to everything, which made it really difficult to change anything because you're right, but yes, but. And when you have a yes, but conversation, you probably have a fixed mindset. Consider if you want to change that. Yes, and what will you change? What if you could have a conversation? Or as my friend always said, put the skunk on the table and surround yourselves with others that will help you face the storm and solve the issues. Now, the world had to put the skunk on the table with COVID. And look how it all affected us. In 2020, I did a research project with the Institute of Coaching where we interviewed leaders from around the world to find out how COVID affected their leadership style. And it was amazing. The report is called what's the report called? Leading with Humanity. And the leaders found that they gained more empathy. If you want this report, put a comment in, James. If you could collect their emails, I'll send this report. Really fascinating that these world leaders said, I need more empathy. I need to understand where others are coming from in adversity, because if I don't, I can't lead. And as we all know, COVID flattened the leadership level, because you would be on a little screen. And a lot of the CEOs said, I was not used to watching someone when I yelled at them. Or a secretary who'd never had the courage to speak to me said, I have a question. Now, here's what I want to know. Do they still remember? Are they still leading with humanity? Are they still being empathetic? Not everyone does. But if you're listening to the sound of my voice, it's more than likely you resonate with that idea, and you do. And our job is to learn, our job is to grow, and our job is to change. When we grow, when we learn, we grow, we change the world. Some of you, I know personally, want to change the world and don't know how to do it. Now, I have changed the world. I know I have. I've been told I have, and I've gone to different parts of the world and done what I could. And I run mastermind groups and facilitations over the years and seen absolute magic that happens when people come together and form a group. And they meet regularly, and they have the confidence that they have the ability to help one another, not just through me. And they put their biggest storms on the table. They put their biggest adversity on the table. And in the work I do on this leadership program, we go through a series of questions, and they start with, how do I face this adversity, whatever it is? And then you get the tools that you need to work through issues. I don't know how to do it except to do it with others. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Now, we can stick our heads in the sand and the consequences follow, or we can learn. Before my cancer journey in 2013, I had the widowmaker heart attack, 2% survival rate. I was stunned when that happened. I was going to boot camp. I was taking care of myself, I thought, but I was under high levels of stress. And when I had that heart attack, I had to reconsider my life and where it was going. And it actually got me ready for the cancer. Because while I could not believe the heart attack, I'm like, seriously, oral cancer? I had a different view of it, but I'd already gone through a huge adversity of facing the heart disease. Because then you have to take blood thinners for a year. I'd look at something in my hand and turn black because my blood was so thin. I had to go to 36 rehabilitation appointments in the gym, at the hospital, so they could put kind of cords on me and make sure I wasn't going to have another heart attack. And I remember sitting there, and it was me. I was in my 50s, and all these older fellows in their 70s, and they're sitting back in their reclining bikes, going real slow, looking at me, bitching and moaning because they couldn't have their Pepsis anymore. And I remember one of them looked at me and they said, so, because I was kind of like odd. I was a woman, and I was young, and I was in pretty good shape. And they said, what are you doing here, honey? I said, I had the widowmaker. And they go, it's just your first one. I'm like, are you kidding me? It is not my first heart attack. It is my last heart attack. I doubled down on the need to get healthy. And then, of course, again, I was better in shape mentally and physically for the oral cancer that would follow. So through the years, life's gotten more difficult, but it's gotten easier. And I came to this understanding of how to face adversity through the spirit of the buffalo. Now, the buffalo metaphor, if you don't know, is buffaloes in the plains are grazing, and when a storm comes, the cattle will move away. Oh, yeah, there was an angel ding. That's funny. James, sorry, I shouldn't be reading these comments. There was a, could you put up the AdFARsity slide, James? There was a buffalo, and as the storm was coming in, the buffalo would run towards the storm, not away from it. And why would a buffalo run towards the storm? Sorry, keep dinging. Because they know the storm is going to come. And there's a couple ways to do that. You can either run from the storm and have it catch you, or you can run towards the storm and get through it faster. I turned this into a metaphor big time when I had my surgery last February. I was in intensive care for 7 days and I didn't want any visitors. But we kept family updated and friends about my surgery, but John kept them informed. But I did prepare a buffalo poster that I wanted all my caregivers to sign. And there I lay with a tracheostomy, a feeding tube, tubes coming out of every area of my body, but I would point to the poster, they would read it, they would smile, and they would sign it. They became part of my team. And in Rwanda, the word for buffalo is imbogo. And I'd rather be called an imbogo than a buffalo at this point in my life. So I am Mama Imbogo in Rwanda. That is how I am known. And I have to admit that facing adversity requires a skill set on multiple levels, and you can't do it alone. In my AdFARsity program, which I'll discuss in depth in a few more minutes, if you choose to join, you will have a chance to discover how those in your herd, which was another training I did last time, can take a rightful and meaningful place in facing adversity. Now, that was all about acceptance in AdFARsity. Now we move on to the third part of FAR, which stands for recognition. We must recognize the small and large victories and be grateful. When I first got oral cancer, I had no idea what to expect, and I was searching around on the internet, and I came across a CEO who had oral cancer, and he said something that changed me. He said, and as a leader of leaders, I know it's all about the bottom line. It's the ROI. It's what are we going to get out of it? How are we going to do it? And he said, don't wait until it's done to celebrate, because we want cancer done. And if I was waiting for cancer to be done, I wouldn't have had one celebration yet because it's not over. But he said, celebrate the small things. Celebrate a birthday party with family. Celebrate a doctor's visit. Celebrate the joy that you have of surviving. And while I don't like to be the center of attention, unless I'm speaking or something, then I want your full attention. I find joy in the world. I find joy in things that happen. And even still, and it hurts people when I tell them this, because then they feel bad because they make me laugh. If I laugh too hard, I have to hold my face because my face hurts, because it's got all kinds of scar tissue in there. And if I laugh really loud, I have to hold my face. So if you make me laugh and I'm holding my face, it's a good thing. I'm not complaining. But I want to remind you again to rejoice. Rejoice in the smallest of victory. Greatness lies not in the event, but the attitude of gratitude we hold. For instance, right now with these new teeth, I can't eat for another 6 weeks, hard food. But for me, everything is perspective. I woke up the other morning really hungry and my stomach growled. And I thought, wow, there are people in the world, all over the world, that wake up this hungry every day. It'll be okay. I'm going to be okay. And you know what? I hope and pray one day I'll be able to eat hard food. I was looking at somebody the other day eat a cheeseburger and I went, God, that looks good. Imagine a cheeseburger. I did have some scallops the other day and ate those like a beaver eating wood because they're nice and soft. But who knew that I am going to find joy in eating a cheeseburger? Who knew? I know. So this is all also jumping around a little bit, but this is also about the Stoic philosophy that you learn to manage what you can and let go of the rest. Marcus Aurelius said, if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment. Same thing, all suffering is impermanent. Same thing, Joan Baez. There are sorrows far greater than mine. This practice takes a lifetime, but it is worth it. Now back to you. How do you celebrate people in your life? Feel free to put a comment in. James will bring them up. Where do you find wonder in the world? A couple of months ago when I went to Miraval, I went to get my head on straight for my upcoming tooth surgery. I was so grateful to be there and so thankful. And all my upper teeth were loose, so I really couldn't chew food. So I looked at the delicious food, but I couldn't eat it. But whether I was hitting a gong or meditating or sitting by the pool or having treatments, I was grateful. And I got my head on straight. And I came up with the AdFARsity program. There are challenge courses there. And there was time for me. And there was no drama. And I came back resolute and ready to face the surgery of having my teeth pulled. And I succeeded in shifting from a fixed mindset of fear and doubt to a growth mindset. And in fact, develop this program. So a fixed mindset can happen at any time. It's not like you conquer it. Like, I don't have a fixed mindset. Bet me. Wait till your next adversity. And unless you have a partner to help you with it, you could go right back into fixed mindset. But if we're fortunate enough to be able to take time away, we should. In the coaching program, I'm going to be taking you to Miraval to partake in the program there. And I don't know that there's anything better than getting away and really doing it with focus and purpose and to come back refreshed. It's often called a vacation, but how many times are our vacations too short? I was only in Miraval for 4 nights. I came back changed because it was super intentional. So I rejoice. I rejoice about good doctor visits. Every time I submitted another thesis for my, another chapter for my thesis for Harvard, I rejoiced. When I uploaded the whole thing to Harvard, I had a big party. I enjoy my time with my husband and my family. It's so critical to me. And I believe that we make time for the relationships in our life that will provide us that joy and happiness. So consider how you choose to rejoice. Those are the 3 pillars: faith, acceptance, recognition. There is so much more work to be done than a short message like this, but I'm offering a 12-month program where we'll take a deep dive into resilience and facing adversity. It'll be a cohort of no more than 8 people who will meet once a month on Zoom and will meet with me also monthly. I have 2 planned events, one in person in Oregon and one in Tucson, Arizona, so we can get together as a group. This is not a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I can't say it, but I don't really want to discuss it further unless you have questions. So James, engineer extraordinaire, is monitoring the chat, so please feel free to comment, share, or ask a question. And this is an opportunity to change your life once and for all. I have realized that my journey in the world is to face adversity and help others do the same. Long after I have uttered my last words, I hope you are encouraged not to be inspired by me, but to be inspired by yourself and know it's time for you to practice what I preach. This work is for you if you're done skirting adversity and want tools to change your outlook forever. It includes a workbook. It's designed to help you confront your greatest obstacles with greater compassion, skill, and courage than you thought possible. And during the 12-month program, which starts this month, it includes all the coaching and the group work. Transportation and accommodations for the 2 extra events are extra, but there'll be guided meditation, homework assignments that are life-changing. And if that doesn't serve you, you can contact me for one-on-one coaching, Vicky@victoriatravash.com. But if you want to learn more about facing AdFARsity, go to that link that's on the scroll. And as a free gift, I've attached a lesson that you'll see at the end. I hope you'll take a deep dive. And you're welcome to set up a call, free of charge, free of obligation, to go over what you learn and ask questions. And I hope this video has brought you value. I hope you found your time to be valuable. And as I change the world in my own way, I want to thank you for choosing to change the world as well. James, can you put up the screen for lesson 2? There it is, free gift for you. Thank you. I'd like to end with an African prayer that says, take care of the children, for they have a long way to go. Take care of the elders, for they have come a long way. And take care of those in between, for they are doing the work. Thank you for doing the work. I'll stay on to answer any questions or take any comments. See you again. Yes, Maggie, this is going to be recorded. It will be up on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. So wherever you watched it, you'll be able to watch it again. And I would love for you to watch it and get back to me with any questions you have. Thank you for being here. Got some music to play, James? Thanks, everyone, for being here today.